This is Rogers TV, London.
And we're back to wrap up this episode of LDN ONT TV. And from Parliament Hill to Bob Cajun yesterday, our nation whispered we always knew that he'd go free as we said goodbye to the tragically hip Gord Downie, to Canada's Gord Downie. You know, when I moved to and started living in Winnipeg, I got to see the tragically hip in concert for the first and second time in a matter of just a few days. After another roadside attraction wrapped up in the Winnipeg Stadium, a bunch of us piled into our cars and drove to Edmonton to see it again a couple days later. That was actually my first experience with the Canadian prairies. That would be followed by all the shows with the guys in the Peg, Derek and Chris, Corey, and the biggest hip fan of us all, Kelly. Every single time the hip came to Winnipeg, even if it did mean we had to wait in minus 35-degree weather to get tickets. And then when London became my home, the Tragically Hip came to Centennial Hall. It was a big deal. It was a B-list town getting an A-list act. And my brother from another mother, Ryan, and I took my then 14-year-old stepbrother Mike to his very first concert ever. And it was a family affair again. Ryan and me, Mike and his wife Jessica, who, the saint that she is, stood in line for tickets for us, took in the final London show together at Budweiser Gardens. And it was also a show that my nephews Brady and Aiden got to take in too, and that they're that next generation of Canadians who are going to love the music. So I'm glad they got to be there. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting at a campfire with another Gord Allen, who was strumming out Wheat Kings and Fiddler's Green on his guitar while the boys from the hockey team listened. The truth is, like so many of you I see around me, the Tragically Hip have been the soundtrack of my life. We knew Gord was ill, and we knew the diagnosis wasn't good. But we all held on to the hope that there'd be more time. It was our illusions of someday cast in a golden light. And when the news came, there was no dress rehearsal. This was our life. Canadians from coast to coast to coast felt sadness and grief, but we were also celebrating a life well lived. There's no simple explanation to anything important, any of us do. But when faced with a terminal diagnosis, Gord made the most of the time he had left, challenging all of us to do better for our Indigenous peoples and the North, and for the environment that sustains us. It isn't often a public figure of any sort becomes something that we as a nation feel is quintessentially Canadian, a touchstone for us all. And we've got a lot of great musical talent, past and present, but none have managed to become as ingrained in our national psyche as the hip did. Maybe it's because the hip didn't do those huge international tours and have success on a global scale. They were truly just ours. Gord and the hip told our stories in a way that resonated with who we are as a people. And not just the positive stories, they told the darker stories too. Honestly, the Toronto Maple Leafs lowered the Bill Barilko banner in tribute at the Air Canada Centre last night for Gord. If Gordy hadn't stole that hockey card, would Canadians even known the last goal he ever scored won the Leafs the cup? Gord isn't gone. The music lives on in all of us, and he's transcended into a Canadian legend. And he did it with grace too.